Have you ever wondered what Naruto could have been like if he could control his shadows, read minds, or make use of
Maroon, the human powder! Maroon!
perhaps if he had his own custom man-beast transformation? Well, I have. For a long time, I have wanted to see what Naruto could have been like if he had access to each individual one of Konoha's clan techniques, be it the Inuzuka, be it the Yamanaka, or even the Nara. But instead of doing them all separately, I thought it could be a fun thought experiment to do it all in one video. So if you have been just as curious to what if Naruto learned all of Konoha's secret techniques, make sure to stay tuned, since that's exactly what we'll be going over. So without further ado, let's get this video started.
And on we'll go.
To start off the story of Naruto, we need to decide on which clans are the most important in Naruto's young age, since his young age is where he would not only be raised to become a shinobi, but also this would define his relationship with each individual clan. As a basic premise here, when Minato asks Hiruzen to raise Naruto and have him be treated as a hero, Hiruzen would take this seriously, not only wanting Naruto to be treated as a hero from the village and the villagers, but to the hierarchy as well. So after Naruto's birth, Hiruzen would not only declare his adoption of the young boy and intent to raise hands on, but bring this to the Leaf Village Council as well. Here we would see some individuals interrupt, for example Danzo, where a lot of political discussion would continue. As time goes by, the council would decide that Naruto's training would be a shared effort. To prevent one singular clan from gaining the full power of the Nine Tails, the boy will not only have individual relationships with each clan, but actually receive some training from each clan, including their secret techniques, which would turn him into Konoha's ultimate hero, instead of the weapon Danzo intended for him. Meaning, the adoption of Naruto from Hiruzen would go through, with the Sarutobi clan providing Naruto with the bare essentials of minor education and a place to call home. Later on, when Naruto turns 4 years old, he would start to train under the Inuzuka. Here we see our first major branch out from Naruto's original technique list or fighting style in the form of him needing to gain a pup, since Inuzuka brats are usually raised along with a pet. But since this is still a what if, I thought maybe instead of giving him a dog, we could go a little more into the fan service section and say that he couldn't really form a bond with any of the puppies. But instead, while sad one day in the forest, might come across something more akin to a baby fox. And through the Inuzuka clan, he would not only train to become closer to this baby fox, but would create a closer bond to it than he ever could another person. At this point, we would skip forward a little bit, to the point where Naruto starts the academy. Once he starts the academy, we actually see him getting introduced to more clans, the Nara and the Yamanaka. Here we would see that the Nara would be teaching Naruto basic chakra control and the basic necessities of becoming a shinobi, while the Yamanaka, who are usually based on intel gathering, would teach Naruto how to study properly and help him along his studies. But as one might guess, this is still Naruto. Even with the added help, it is not likely that he would be very literally inclined. But nevertheless, we skip forward once again. At this point, we see a parodied version of Hinata getting bullied, with Naruto meeting her for the first time, helping fight off the bullies, this time with practically no hassle, since the added training from not only the two previous clans, but his little pup, Naruto was able to scare off the bullies, and since here he's not viewed as a monster by the village and villagers, but instead a hero, that is kind of what Hinata sees him to be as well. Ironically, around this time, about a year has passed since he joined the academy, meaning it is time for his next upgrade. We would see him be introduced to the Hyuga clan, as they would be, going forward, his taijutsu instructors. Even though he is unable to obtain things such as the Byakugan, he could still learn a lot from the Hyuga clan off of pure taijutsu. Obviously, we could use characters like Boruto as a reference for this, but nevertheless, we continue Naruto's years in the academy only training primarily under these three clans: the Nara, the Yamanaka, and the Hyuga, with occasional training from the Inuzuka to deepen his bond with his fox. Now, the reason why his academy career would mostly be limited to these three clans is not only because it is already a thing of him learning a lot from these individual clans, but also him having to study in their unique forms of combat and ninjutsu. So as he progresses through the academy, not only would he learn things like the basic shadow possession from the Nara, the basic mind swap from the Yamanaka, and also the basic gentle palm technique from the Hyuga, but would be focused on academy studies and raising his pet fox, while certain overseers from the Sarutobi clan look over him in anticipation. Now, at this point, usually we would see Mizuki, as he tries to get Naruto to steal the scroll. But since Naruto is functionally being groomed to be a talented individual, I doubt someone would overlook the fact that Naruto has bad chakra control due to his amount of chakra, especially considering for the better part of his academy career, he had been learning heightened chakra control from the Nara, due to the amount of control they require for their technique. So overall, I just think he would not have low enough chakra control to not be able to pass this test. So in this case, Mizuki would probably try to steal it himself and end up either being imprisoned or offed in the process. But moving forward, the graduation in Team 7. Now, Naruto and Sasuke probably have a very different dynamic. Now, both of them have very similar lives at this point, being seen by the village as these prodigies that are practically the future of the village itself. They also have no family. But the difference is, where Sasuke's family was lost, he is now alone. But Naruto lost his family only to discover another, creating a sort of duality between the two characters, and once again sparks up that rivalry, this time closer than ever, with it actually being an on-off record of who's ahead, instead of pure Sasuke domination. And as per usual, we move forward to the Team 7 belt test, which even though Naruto would have more techniques, he would likely still make a lot of the mistakes he did. Probably not running up and getting trapped, but trying to use his arsenal against Kakashi, a way more experienced individual who has knowledge of most of Naruto's techniques, meaning he was at a functional disadvantage and would stay that way, causing the Team 7 test to go right about the same with the exception of a few alterations in fights. Now, some arcs would go almost exactly how they went, with once again the exception of just techniques being different, since Naruto at this point wouldn't have enough strength to actually make a huge difference in the execution of things like the Land of Waves arc. But there is another point we could bring up around this time. After we see the Land of Wave arcs pass and before the Chunin exams start, we see Naruto meeting Konohamaru. But this time, it's a little bit different. Obviously, at this point, Naruto and Konohamaru would have been raised in the same household. Both being raised by the Sarutobi clan, they would have probably seen each other or heard of each other more than one time. So instead of it being a situation of Naruto and Hiruzen butting heads or so on and so forth, we see Naruto and Konohamaru instead run into each other right before the Chunin exams, and hear an interaction or a trade of words. Konohamaru always wanted to become the Hokage, to show up his grandfather, and not just be his shadow, but also to show up Naruto, someone who is regarded as a hero to the village. He has more motivation than ever, but Naruto, who knows of Konohamaru's tragic story, sees him as someone he wishes to help. So Naruto would actually try here, but for some unforeseen reason, they butt heads. Until later at least, when Kankuro and Gaara and Temari would encounter Konohamaru, and for the lack of better words, start picking on him. Naruto would stand up for Konohamaru, showing that he actually does care for the little runt, which would start off their relationship. But since Naruto's arsenal this time around is so specific, I doubt he would be able to teach Konohamaru much. Probably no Rasengan or Shadow Clone Jutsu, but instead gives him the advice to keep up with his clan training. Since the Sarutobi are one of the strongest clans in the village and they've already produced a Hokage, if he just keeps at it, he's bound to overcome his grandfather, which was exactly the type of advice he needed before running off. On the other hand, we would see Naruto's team butt heads with Gaara's before the Chunin exam would officially start. Now at this point, obviously Naruto would be at an all-time high of cockiness, since not only being raised by some of the strongest shinobi in the village, but also being that guy, that hotshot everybody knows about. He would, as per usual, be intimidated during the test while pretending not to be, and the Chunin exams would once again pass with merely combat differences, since something as small as this really does not change these early arcs. Until the 1 month training period, where we would see our first huge change caused. Within the 1 month training period, instead of us seeing Naruto train with Jiraiya, instead he would start training under the Akamichis, considering Choji would not pass to the finals. Here we would see Naruto not only progress through the basics of the Akamichi secret technique, but also see Naruto's genius shine through. Since even though he was originally intended to only learn the partial expansion, he would pick it up quick enough for him to actually start training on the super expansion jutsu, but never quite finish it before the 1 month. Now, we see some more time pass. We see Naruto having trained a little bit more before his test with the Inuzuka. And finally, the day happens. Naruto fights off against Neji, who he had a relationship with. This time, instead of him and Neji having a relationship of Neji thinking he's better and meant for greater things, he's putting himself and others down in favor of Naruto, saying that talent can only go so far when it comes to someone with not only talent, but the means to improve that talent infinitely. Not only would Naruto be upset of Neji's words towards Hinata in the previous exam, but also to disprove Neji's current statements, saying that Neji has just as good of a chance at beating him as he has at Neji. And as the match wraps up closer than ever, and a flurry of words being exchanged between the two, Neji finally understands, this time a different view than what he had from canon, that everybody can be strong. Everybody could have talent. Those talents and strengths just might not come in the same places. And this is where we see everything go to hell. We see Gaara's attack. Now, as per usual, Sasuke would chase after Gaara before almost immediately getting knocked out, with Naruto following shortly after. Here, Naruto would likely break himself out of the Genjutsu instead of having to rely on others, and as he closes into Gaara, we would see a completely different version of the match. Now, this time Naruto has access to two techniques that will be replacing Gamabunta. One being the Super Expansion technique, and the other being the Man-Beast transformation, Dual Nine Tails. Now, the dual Nine Tails is a transformation between him and his fox companion, where they are a two-headed fox amalgamation with only a single tail, the Nine Tails merely being a reference from Naruto to his own tailed beast. Here we would see Naruto for the first time combining large techniques together to change the outcome of a fight. Now, even though it would go similar as to usual, where Naruto would have to knock Gaara out and give him a Taka no Jutsu, it would go a little bit different. Instead of Naruto being overly injured, since he is in full control of this transformation, he can do exactly what he intends. Even though he would not have the experience of Gamabunta backing him here, he has more control over the fight itself, and would eventually gain an upper hand not on Shikaku, but on Gaara. And not only would he be able to knock some sense into him at some point, but also exchange words. And eventually, when we get to that point where Naruto says if he wasn't loved the way that he was or treated as a hero, he would have likely turned out exactly like Gaara, and extends a hand to the young boy from the sand and says, "But you can still be like me. Let's start anew. My name's Naruto Uzumaki. You want to be friends?" And that would change Gaara for the better. Now, when it comes to the Tsunade retrieval, Naruto would finally meet Jiraiya for the first time. Here, Naruto would already be aware of his father being the fourth Hokage, and Jiraiya being the person who taught his father. So he would be more than excited not only to meet Jiraiya, but learn under him. Now, when it comes to what Jiraiya would teach Naruto, here the summoning jutsu would not be as important, since Naruto has an alternative that might just be better for him in the future, as he wouldn't be bottlenecked by the power of his summonings when in large-scale combat. This isn't to dunk on Gamabunta or the Toads in any way, but Naruto gets to a level of power later on in Shippuden, which just kind of overshadows the need for these summonings, as all they are bigger, slower, weaker intermediaries for combat. So here we're gonna say Naruto would start learning the Rasengan, and with better overall control and understanding, I think he would get it down by the time he is required. We would still see the Tsunade retrieval go almost exactly the same, with the only exception being Naruto's fight against Kabuto would be a little easier, and the light that shines so bright within him would captivate Tsunade all the better. Meaning all that's really left is the Sasuke retrieval. Now, when it comes to the structure of the Sasuke retrieval, with Naruto being the last individual to fight, we can make one of two assumptions. Either Naruto would beat Kimimaro, which I doubt since Kimimaru's power level at this point in time is still higher, but considering Naruto has the super expansion instead of the partial expansion, it is very much possible. But if we said Naruto only stalled out against Kimimaro for a bit before Lee arrived, and he continued to Sasuke, there is not a doubt in my mind he would succeed in retrieving Sasuke, since his only missing technique at this point would be the shadow clones. But I personally think we've covered more than enough in this video, and if you guys want to see me include all the rest of the clans in the next one, make sure to comment down below. And in fact, I want to hear your opinion on how the Naruto versus Sasuke fight would go with Naruto's new arsenal. Not only a man-beast transformation and fang over fang combo, but also the super expansion jutsu, shadow possession, and mind control. How do you think this would change the world of Naruto, and how do you think this fight would have ended in return? Find out next time on What If Naruto Learned All of Konoha's secret techniques. Peace, nerds.